Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Adi, and today we have the Indianapolis Regional Champion Team Report. And I am joined by two special guests. First and foremost, your Indy Regional Champion, Rajan. How are you doing?
I am doing great. We got the thingy. Doing really well. Happy to be here. Happy to be here with my friend Aaron, and very, very, very excited to have won the only important event of the year.
All right, and with that, do you even need any more introduction? Are there any other things you want to talk about yourself?
Um, yeah, I've been playing BGC since like the tail end of 2015, so post Worlds 2015, realistically, and um, you know, uh, I've been around the block for a little bit. Cut some regionals, got finals in Toronto at 2018, but it took until this weekend for me to finally take one home and to finally get out of the financial hole that Pokemon has left me in.
Yeah, and
I think I'm like probably in the black now, or like much less in the red overall, which is pretty cool.
yeah, um, and of course our other guest, the other part of the biker gang, I guess. We got Aaron. How you
The
doing?
Bike Bros, the Bike
Bike
Bros,
Bros. Okay.
actually.
Yeah, we're the bike bros. Hey, I'm doing great. I'm Aaron Trailer. I've been playing VGC since 2011. I started in the seniors division and then went to the masters division, and I've gotten top 8 at Worlds in 2016 and top 16 at Worlds in 2019, and I finished 8th at the same regional. And so it was really just a lot of fun. Rajan and I have actually been working together more off than on, but like we met shortly after he hit the scene in 2015, and he was a big part of my success in that year in 2016 as well. So
I
it
really
kind of comes full
appreciate
circle there.
that. But this was the first team that Aaron and I worked on for the same event for the purposes of running at the same time, basically, which is really exciting.
Yeah.
And it's awesome to see that you both did really well, even though you had slightly different takes on it. And so I pulled up Rajan's, of course, the champion version of the team. But yeah, let's talk about this is the
Priority.
first event of the format, right? And so brand new format, no one really knows what's good. Tell me about how you guys approached this regional in terms of team building.
Absolutely. So I guess I'll start a little bit in that I think that off the rip with there was a lot of grassroots tournaments and there was a lot of like online tournaments that were helping people get acclimated to Reg G prior to Indianapolis regionals because this was technically the first weekend of the format, but people seem to be like they had a lot of opinions about what was good, what wasn't good, how things should be run, and had a lot of thoughts about, what playing Reg G looked like and things of that nature. And I don't want to say this with like hindsight in mind, but I think there were a lot of bad takes. And the reason I think there was a lot of bad takes is because I think people were fundamentally approaching the format incorrectly. And I think they continue to be, not that I have approached it correctly, but I think people are and have been fundamentally approaching the format incorrectly. Because what I was seeing, at least going into this format, were a lot of people were considering Reg G to mirror the progression of formats up until this year. Reg B introduced like Paradox Monster, Reg A, Reg C introduced Ruins to Reg B, and there's been an additive pattern to the formats. And I think a lot of people are taking a lot of the lessons from, like Reg F or previous formats and trying to ham fist them into Reg G. And this is relevant because I just like when seeing what was doing well and seeing what people were succeeding with, it didn't feel right. It didn't look right. It did not seem like we'd even come close to like doing what we could with the restrictions. So I was very interested initially in like in Miraidon, but also in Kyogre. Those were the two main ones that I got really excited by. And I spent a lot of the format building Kyogre. But in part because I got baited as well by the way how poorly Miraidon was doing in online tournaments. It just like was really bombing out. It wasn't, placing, but traditionally it was being run with Terra Fairy. Um, saw more people streaming with Miraidon, especially Alex on the Tub Nation channel. Um, and then had a thought. And my thought was, what if Terra Fairy sucks shit? What if this ability is just real, or this Terra type is just really bad on this Pokemon? And I put Terra Electric on it, and it got really ungodly, unbelievably powerful. And we will talk through that a little bit more. I'll let Aaron get a word in a second. But as we started to realize that, like, wait a second, Terra Electric's really strong. Maybe we're supposed to really lean in on the things Miraidon does well instead of diversifying its options, instead of giving it like a Terra Fairy Gleam. What if we just give it really strong electric moves and really lean in on what makes it a strong and effective pointed stone in the format? And I'd been talking with Aaron on and off about what we were mutually interested in, and the only Pokemon intersect there was Miraidon. Um, and then we just kind of like started thinking about it and started talking about Terra Electric Calix and started thinking about like what this Pokemon did well, what it needed to succeed. And eventually Aaron and I were like, nah, like F it. Like this is the Pokemon we're gonna center our efforts around, and started putting it together. And yeah, I'd be happy to let you get a word in for a second, but that was
That's okay. Hey, today's it's about Rajan today. So everything that you said, yeah, it totally tracks. But I just like, do you remember the point at which we both decided to put our eggs in the Miraidon basket, or like I did, and then you were like, okay, but like I might jump in too.
I
Do you
was
remember?
very wishy-washy for sure. Like
Mhm.
I had said to myself, because I have this tendency when I build or when I think about things to like build too many things at once and then to not focus my attention on one thing and then to really like divest my efforts poorly prior to a tournament and then just be a little bit inexperienced with something. So like a week before the tournament, I was like, I'm locking in on Kyogre. That's what I'm doing. I'm building Kyogre. I'll deal with Miraidon for LA. I don't have time. My work schedule is too busy. No one is building this with me. And then Aaron's like, I'm kind of interested in Miraidon too. And then I said, all right, fuck what I just said. I'm building Miraidon with this guy now. Yeah, precise.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah. Yeah, so this screenshot, I went back and found it like as the regional was wrapping up, when we both decided to hypothetically consider Miraidon. But what's not shown in this screenshot, like a couple messages like after, is it's followed by like me saying, Rajan, I'm thinking about refunding my travel to this to this regional. Like, I just don't want to go anymore. Because like you said, you were into Kyogre and I was into some other stuff. And I had been talking about Miraidon for a little bit with Evan Lat, but, much like you, Rajan, I like look at lots of different things. And so we saw all this and it just was not in the state that it looked, when Rajan was KOing Pokemon with Volt Switch every other turn on regional stream, like that's not what it looked like at that point. We just like had like an idea, but we have lots of ideas, and how do we know it would be this one? And we're also like GS Cup veterans, I think, like, and I'm still very like I talk about 2016 any point that I can, which is like there are strong legendary Pokemon and there are weak legendary Pokemon, and that difference in power really matters. And I think we both wanted to use what we thought was going to end up being really, really strong, which for Rajan, that was Kyogre. And for me, I was thinking about Calyrex Shadow and Terapagos. But again, like Rajan said, like I was so mad. I just did not like playing Fire, Water, Grass, Calyrex Shadow, Fire, Water, Grass, Terapagos. And I lost so many games in practice that I really, really hit rock bottom. And I was like, Rajan, like, I'm gonna refund my travel. Like, I'm just, like, I need to run something, like, fun. And you were like, okay, like, don't refund. Let's talk a little bit more about Miraidon. And that's really, from my mind, how things started coming together.
so I do want to keep in mind that we started the process about 1 week before the tournament.
Yes.
And that's when we both said, all right, we're going to just ball out at this tournament. I knew for myself I was not going to be the person that won the tour with Rillaboom, Incineroar, Calyrex Shadow, and I'm not going to diss the archetype, and I don't want to keep saying that like I knew what was good and how things should be approached and other people didn't. But I knew I would not succeed in that way.
Yeah.
Especially and so we started this process about a week before Indy. The three givens that we had were Miraidon, Farigiraf, Blood Moon. And I want to keep in mind, like, that was a really busy work week for me. Aaron was submitting his thesis during that week. So it
Yep.
was like a really funky process of like just DMs and then throwing in a group chat with Evan Latt and Robert Moore, who is a friend of mine who ran Aaron's version of the team at Indy. Um, but we were just trying to be as efficient with what we did as possible. So the three givens were Miraidon, Farigiraf, Ursaluna, Blood Moon. That seemed like it made a lot of sense. Farigiraf was a strong deterrent for priority moves for Miraidon. Oh, but what we first established was if we are running Miraidon, it is Terra Electric, Modest, Choice Specs, Miraidon with Volt Switch, Electro Drift, and Draco Meteor. We did not have the fourth move inherently. I'm super glad that we landed on Discharge, but we didn't have the fourth move immediately. It was just like Volt Switch is killing things that shouldn't kill, and that's really really strong. So we had Farigiraf, we had Blood Moon, as the other two Pokemon that like kind of rounded it out, gave Miraidon an additional Pokemon to like finish the game with, and then and the Farigiraf Blood Moon core is really strong into Shadow Rider and helps a lot into Ice Rider. Like those were like the three premises. And then things like kind of stalled out from there a little bit. The next breakthrough or thing that like landed on the four Mons of the team, I think, was Whimsicott. I'm not sure if I'm switching the order there between Whims and Incin for you, but for me, I think the next like really big step in the right direction was putting Whimsicott on the team. Miraidon struggles a lot with Raging Bolt. It has a hard time with, well, I mean, mainly Bolt, right? Like, it's just, none of the Miraidon teams in tournaments had a Tailwind mode, really. And that felt really reactive, and that felt like it was trying to assert Miraidon a little bit too passively into things. Whereas a Tailwind mode gave it the ability to really clean up the end game and to Volt Switch out in the early game without taking damage. And I think Aaron and I both thought that a fast mode was really important for Miraidon, and then also Aaron was really excited, if you want to talk about that, about the fast mode transitioning into a slow mode as like the way of like centering the team.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Like it, I had gotten my Miraidon hit by Kyogre with Choice Scarf, Kyogre, and Tailwind. That Water Spout actually really freaking hurts, and that had happened too many times for me. And I think, like, in my practice games, I was just like, there must be some way to get Miraidon faster than the other Pokemon. I'm not going to sit here, go to a regional, and take Water Spouts. And so we narrowed it down to, the Tailwinders, Whimsicott, and Tornadus stuck out, and then, Raging Bolt. I was really excited about this because Miraidon, Whimsicott, Ursaluna, Blood Moon, and Farigiraf, so you can really mix up the Tailwind and the Trick Room, is kind of exactly how I love to play. You start out with your Tailwind Pokemon, you send in your fast Trick Room Pokemon, you outspeed everything, and on the last turn, you just get that Trick Room on in, and they can't do anything. In my Game 1 stream set, round 14 against Luca, I basically did exactly that. And there was basically, like, no room for his Koraidon to get around Ursaluna Blood Moon at all. And I think that, like, when we were like, it has to be Whimsicott as the last Mon, even before you added Encore, which ended up being really, really just, like, a huge critical part of the team, that's when I went from, like, I am panicking about this regional, I really want to, like, cancel and just enjoy a week on the couch, to, all right, this is going to be a fun time.
Excited to click buttons.
Yeah, excited to click button. The excitement overtook me. And again, it was just all the little things on this team. Like, Farigiraf has that electric seed, and I don't think there's been a really successful use of a seed item, I mean, outside of, like, Indeedee boosting itself.
Like Misty Seed Finnies were seen a little bit.
Yeah, like, maybe 2021, 2022, I forget those years, they're all one big blur to me, but, like, And so Electric Seed was a huge part of, like, beating Calyrex Ice, and, we kind of, Rajan, you're just, like, a lot of the little things of the team are just Rajan waking up one day and saying, like, from my perspective, I don't know what else he's doing, but he's like, okay, it's Electric Seed now. I'm like, it's Electric Seed now. Yeah, so, yeah.
I guess I did forget to mention that. That was, like, a very quick decision for me, I think, because what were we using Farigiraf for inherently? If Farigiraf is on the team, the attacks on that Pokemon are not very good. So how do we extract the most value from Farigiraf? First and foremost is denying Fake Out from Miraidon. Fine, it does that. Setting up Trick Room for Blood Moon, it does that. Increasing Miraidon's damage, it does that. Like, those are positive things, but how do we actually make Farigiraf do something in a game or extract value in a matchup? Foul Play seemed pretty clear as the attacking move of choice. I think, well, that wasn't like immediately clear because all of the attacks suck. And I know Aaron's and some first drafts had like Protect and Psychic and things of that nature. But I think for Farigiraf to be useful, it needed Foul Play. That's the best attack to hit both horses. Cool. So we have Foul Play. But if we want this Mon to be very good into the horses, we need an item that's usable into the horses. And Citrus Berry is not usable into the horses because of their as one ability acting as Unnerve. Rocky Helmet's not very good into the Shadow Rider stuff, and like it can be useful into Incin and Rillaboom, but like who cares? And it's not hitting Calyrex at all, and like none of those items are very good. But we had a whole ass electric terrain Pokemon on our team. Like, what if we give this Pokemon an electric seed, boost its defenses even more, let it actually just take no damage at all from Glacial Lance, and like take no damage from Rillaboom Woodhammers, be immune to knockoff, basically. Like, that just seemed like a very quick thing, but it really it really changed up the way the Pokemon played. Made it able to take a lot of double ups that it's not supposed to. It avoids the 3-hit KO from Glacial Lance. Like, it seemed like we really just fundamentally understood like what made the first 4 Pokemon really strong. Wims, Blood Moon, Farigiraf, Miraidon, and that seemed really exciting. We had some experimenting with the Whimsicott set. I wanted to test out Endeavor and have Whimsicott be faster than Miraidon for a little bit. Just to be able to, because Miraidon seems like really good at doing like 120 HP to something specifically. So you could Endeavor into Volt Switch and knock out a lot of Pokemon. But
Wims being faster than Miraidon would have made the finals a lot more locked up. I remember sitting there in the audience with Nails, as you know, you're trying to figure out whether Discharge would KO this Terapagos. I was like, if Discharge misses, I'll because I was like, no, Miraidon must be max speed because we need to like tie other Miraidon. Like, I didn't want to be slower than any other Miraidon and maybe Koraidon, but then I was like, oh my god.
I did really want Miraidon to be undersped by Whimsicott specifically for the Terapagos matchup because of Moonblast hitting Terra Shell and like for discharge purposes, but I also opted into max speed, which is my decision, which is fine. But we had those 4 Mons and it felt really good. And we're like, okay, what do we do about Mon 5 and Mon 6? And like a couple days before the tournament, I actually had Mon 5 and Mon 6 as Assault Vest Iron Hands and Heartflame as my Mons 5 and Mon 6. Aaron had Assault Vest Incineroar, and then he Brain Blasted into Ditto and felt really locked into his version of the team. But I was stuck a little bit. I was thinking Iron Hands. I was thinking Heartflame. I thought that Iron Hands made a really strong Trick Room mode with Farigiraf and could really benefit from the Miraidon's electric terrain. I thought Iron Hands was like the only acceptable Quark Drive Pokemon, I thought, in terms of the way the team was playing. And I went with Heartflame because it did a lot of damage and added a lot of flexibility to the team with Follow Me. And that version of the team looked good and looked strong. But I was struggling a lot where Iron Hands felt really unbringable in sets. It felt like I couldn't bring it into Shadow Rider, but like thought that was supposed to be one of the ways to actually attack the Rillaboom and Incineroar part of the team. It wasn't coming to Ice Rider. Like, none of the Mons were actually coming to the games, but I was still winning all the games that I was playing. And I was like, oh, well, this at least is really strong, even if this part of the team sucks a lot. But at this point in testing, this is like 2 days before the regional, Aaron was locked in on his 6, what's on the screen right now. He had Incin, he had Ditto. And I think that that's a really interesting way you got to Ditto.
I mean, you want me to talk about Ditto?
Yeah.
At
this point, sister... I have 4 Pokemon.
Yeah. So I do think my sister made this a little plushie, and me and Robbie rocked these during the regional. It was a lot of fun, and I was so happy to get it on stream. But yeah, It was like I think I can say a little bit more later about how we work together because I think that's pretty interesting. But like this team, like although it looks really similar, it was two teams for a large like what felt like a really long period of time, but was really probably like a day and a half.
The whole
I
process took a week.
The whole process took a week, but like a very involved week. I mean, well, involved while we were working on our real life commitments, but it was a lot of back and forth. But I locked in on Ensign really, really fast because I was like, I'm still not sure about Shadow Rider, despite having matching Tailwind and two normal types. I really like being able to fake out. I love having another pivot Pokemon, and I feel kind of naked without Intimidate. They're just like really just like fringe stuff like, oh, maybe Rillaboom gets a couple attacks in. I didn't like that. You know, what if somebody has a Zacian? And so for me, I was like set on Instant. I was tempted by Iron Hands like a little bit watching some of Rajan's games where it went kind of nutty. But I couldn't figure out the
He's
last
pretty
one.
strong, and Volt
It's
Switch
really
is the pivot
strong.
move of choice, but Volt Switch
Yeah.
is no U-turn.
Yeah, U-turn is nice because Terra Grass Pokemon are a big deal for this team, and you can just U-turn off them and do like a third of their health, and then like come back later. But Ditto, yeah, I didn't really know what to do for the last Pokemon, and I felt like the core because I was like on my core five a little bit faster than Rajan was because he was still exploring Iron Hands.
I'm not
I
an
was
instant
like,
believer in this format. I just didn't
yeah.
think that Incineroar was particularly strong. I think Incineroar was like a big part of like of presumptions that people had going in. Like it's Incin, it has to be good, and Parting Shot and Intimidate didn't feel very good really at all. With Clear Amulet being the physical um being the item for physical attackers, and it just seemed like Instant wasn't getting that much value, and it seemed very easy to knock out. Like I just was not enjoying that Pokemon at all.
Yeah. I thought about that. I was like that that really colored my perception of the format. Like that same line of thought. Um for like the first few weeks and I was like talking to Luca about it and he was like, "Yeah, maybe it can't use all 5 billion of its tools, but it's still, got 5 billion minus 1, due to Clam and like Covert Cloak and stuff." And I was like, on this team I really appreciate the U-turns, and so that's why I kind of like glommed onto it, I think, a little faster. But for Ditto, I was like, okay, there's a bunch like it's not that matchups are bad. It's just I don't feel like they're good, and I wish I had a little bit of help, specifically into, uh, you know, Calyrex Shadow Rider, even with the two normal types, even with the AV Instant, even with the Tailwind. I was like, but like Calyrex Shadow, like I was terrified of playing Joe Ugarte with Rillaboom and Calyrex Shadow Rider. And people like I was losing to my friends playing Calyrex Shadow Rider in practice. Maybe I wasn't playing perfectly, so I
We were
was
still
worried
figuring it
about.
out.
Yeah, we're still figuring it out. I was worried about Koraidon. I was worried about rogue stuff like Zamazenta that had, some support. And I was like walking in Providence one day and I was just like, oh my God, we have a bunch of pivot Pokemon and I can play Ditto here. And I immediately thought of Gabriel Agati's 2019 Worlds team, where he finished top 16 with Ditto, Lunala, Coco, Incin, Mega Kangaskhan, and I forget the last one, but it was a restricted Pokemon. Probably, was it Xerneas? Yeah, it was Xerneas.
It was Zernala.
Yeah, Zernala. But I played so many games of that team in practice, and I felt so good in those games. I think that was some of the best Pokemon I ever played. And like when I knew that that was the last Pokemon, I was basically skipping down the sidewalk to like go test it out. But I did. I knew
Ice
that.
cream cone in hand, he was going
That's right. Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah. I had my little like propeller beanie on. I was like, da, 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 da. But I took a second before telling Rajan because I was like, okay, if I'm going to suggest this to Rajan, one, I know he's not going to be on board, so I have to like kind of dress it up, and two, I really have to be able to defend myself. So I told Evan first, and I was like, oh, that's cool, and I was like, okay, Rajan, here's the line of thought. Um,
And I
but
got it too. I
yeah,
understood where Aaron was coming from, and I like knew that that made a lot of sense for him. But I'm gonna be honest, I thought it was dog shit off the rip, and I still kind of feel that way. But that's fine because it doesn't have to
yeah,
converge one to one. You don't need to have the exact same choices.
yeah.
But I'm super glad he was as thrilled as he was.
Yeah, I was. really, really happy, and I immediately loaded up a practice game against my friend Montana with Calyrex Shadow Rider, and he had given me some difficult, like he was learning how to play the matchup and had given me some difficulty, and I just like rolled him, and like 4 turns each game, I sacrificed all my Pokemon, and Ditto came, and I was like, yeah, and from then on, like that was Wednesday night into afternoon into night, and from then on I was like set and just like getting my Pokemon together. So I think we should talk about how your Pokemon came together.
Yeah. So the funny thing
Yeah.
too, and I know we spent a lot of time on this, but the funny thing too is Aaron was posting all these replays where he was winning with Ditto, and it
Yeah.
just kept looking worse and worse and worse and worse to
Yeah.
me. Every single replay he posted, I'm like, none of your mons do anything now. You're just like playing a game of hoping your opponent loses, not you winning. Like, what is happening here? This
Yeah, it was
sucks.
great.
What is this?
It was awesome.
But I did realize in testing, because I played a couple sets with Montana too, that Iron Hand sucked. It just like was not it, and I couldn't use that mon, and it had to be AV Incineroar, and that was fine. I got to those 5 Pokemon, but I was deciding on the 6th. One of the differences though is I knew I was not going to have Ditto, so my Calyrex Shadow Rider matchup was not going to be as free. So I needed my Blood Moon to be a timid nature, so it could outrun Shadow Rider and Tailwind, and outrun Adamant, Choice Scarf, Urshifu, and Tailwind. Whereas Aaron, knowing that he had Choice Scarf Ditto to completely demoralize Shadow Rider, could afford modest Blood Moon. That was the only actual difference in the team up until that point. But the 6 Mon I did not come to until the day of, essentially. I literally, the day before, I was like, it could be Heartflame, it could be Wellspring, it could be Cornerstone, it could be Iron Boulder, maybe Ditto, I don't know.
Adi, I feel like
Uh,
you're a lot more familiar with. I mean, I'm familiar with this part, but I feel like you're much more familiar with this part in the process than I am. Where it's like, okay, like you just need to let Rajan put like 40 things in his builder, and he'll figure it out. Like,
I mean, it's like if I'm day before the regional, I have 5 Mons locked in. I feel really good.
That's better than
That's
normal.
yeah,
that's like really good for me. I had 5 Mons locked in and they were broken. I was telling Eric, like I was like, at the moment I feel top 32, top 16, and I want to do better. Was how I felt at the time, and it's like that's how I felt. The first 5 Mons were really good. Miraidon was stupid broken. Eventually, I leaned in on Cornerstone, in part due to like largely due to Alex Underhill's suggestion. It's like, why do you want Wellspring? That mon sucks. Run Cornerstone. That's sturdy. I'm like, fair. And then I thought about it and I leaned in on it. Like Heartflame with Follow Me was really good at balancing out some of the other pieces. So having Follow Me on the team was really nice. But more importantly for me, I think Ogerpon was just absolutely the correct choice because it's just more of how I like to play. It had neutral damage for Incin, Rillaboom, Raging Bolt. It could hit Calyrex around Amoonguss. It had a lot of really valuable traits, and it had Focus Sash. So we'll talk about how to play the team, but like what felt really intuitive to me was the Incin, Whimsicott, Ogerpon, Miraidon mode, and using Miraidon to force a knockout in one slot, either with Terra Electric Volt Switch, the risk of Draco Meteor, something along those lines. And then if you have Focus Sash Pokemon in the back and you knock out a Pokemon, then you can always get that Pokemon in. Whereas that's not inherently the case with other kinds of Pokemon. So, like, to me, Incin, Whimsicott, Cornerstone, Miraidon had a lot of options. And on my end, I thought the weak link was Blood Moon. I actually really didn't end up liking Blood Moon all that much. But that's kind of how we got here. We converged on a lot of choices, but what was important was we didn't get forced into things we felt uncomfortable about. And I think Aaron was really good at helping me with the things that I was comfortable and uncomfortable about. And I think I was helpful in that regard too. So even though we had 5 or 6 Mons, I think our processes look pretty different. But overall, like I cannot be more happy with the final product.
yeah. I really like how this all came together, and I just want to like zoom out before we like move on. I really like the way that like these two team building styles work together because I think you and I are really comfortable in what we know to be right for ourselves and aren't willing to like let the other person dictate that. Like, I just like held up a plushie of like, a cute Pokemon, and like I was like, oh my god, I loved it. I fell in love. I knew it was like the right thing. And you just sat here and you're like, that like it looked like crap, and it did, like in some of those replays maybe it did, but like you knew what was right for you and I knew what was right for me, and like I feel like being able to like know that so well as like call somebody out on when something you see not working, and like most importantly, not taking answers you're given for granted, I think are all really important parts of group team building. And I struggle with them in lots of different contexts, but like not here, and not with Rajan. So
I appreciate that. And I think that's also one thing that happens too sometimes. People build as a group and feel like by group building, you have to run the same thing. And at the end of the day, you're responsible for what you lock in. Every choice is yours. And if you feel like someone is pressuring you into something, then that's just not a healthy dynamic. So happy to talk through the individual choices on the team, but that was the macro of what got us to where we were. It seemed like we spent a lot of time on it, but really it went from like Friday before, like week of Friday to Friday was just like the whole process where it came together.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I just want to add one thing to what Aaron was saying, which is that so a couple years ago during the pandemic, I had a video where I interviewed a few people who had won regionals early in the format, and they, yeah, actually, I think Aaron, I asked you to be on it, right? And you're busy or something. But
I was busy. I regretted it. This is my first time I think on your channel, and I was like, man, I missed my chance. You'll never want me again.
Keep cutting regionals, and you'll keep coming on here for sure. But yeah, no, I remember the advice you just gave was very similar to the advice that I forget who exactly that video gave. I think it was Cedric. But he said, what I did was I found the most powerful thing possible, right? Which is what you did. And then you ended up rounding it out with comfort, and you took a lot of inspiration from past similar formats. And those were things that, that all these players had really emphasized that consistently really does well early format, where, you had that level of comfort with Ditto, and you found a way to, or you incorporated it into a team that was already so powerful. And similarly, Rajan, you are so comfortable with your Sash grass types with rock type moves, right? So you found a way.
Oh my god! So hilariously, my best finish prior to this point was my VGC 18 Toronto team. I was at I finished second place. I lost to James Beck in the finals, and that team too. I had 5 Pokemon I'd fallen in love with. The 5 on that team were Mega Gengar, Incineroar, Mimikyu, Snorlax, and like some other thing. I don't remember.
Was it Virizion?
No, that was Mon 6, but the Mon's 5, I don't remember what it was. Yeah, Snorlax, Mimikyu, Incin, Gengar, and Tapu Fini were the 5 I'd fallen in love with. And I rounded it out with a Focus Sash Grass type with a 100 base power rock move. And it turns out that's what I did here too, because Virizion was my Mon 6 here too, because the Sash is a problem solver. Focus Sash is inherently a problem-solving item, and with Sturdy, it's the same thing. And in this format in particular, hitting around a Mungus is so extraordinarily important. Whimsicott being able to encore things next to a Mungus, it was really important. Ogerpon being able to hit things around a Mungus was really important. And then Cornerstone, like both of the Pokemon, just being Focus Sash Pokemon that ignore a Mungus was super, super, super valuable in terms of like giving me more options than my opponent had for the purposes of gameplay.
Mm-hmm.
So going down the choices immediately, Miraidon will start with. People keep asking me, can I get your Miraidon spread? Can I get your Miraidon spread? It's like, here you go. Like, take it. We didn't even 4-4 because we didn't want to lose a point anywhere. We went 4 HP, 252 special attack, 252 speed, modest. That Pokemon, we were not compromising for a second. The thing that made it broken was how pointed the stone was. Terra Electric, choice specs, every multiplier in the universe. The thing that I think that helped make Miraidon click for us, whereas other people were thinking it was more mid, was just how broken Volt Switch was. On my head, Justin Burns reminded me that I was one of the first people to like run Volt Switch Tapu Koko as well. In 2017 Athens, Georgia, I top cut that regional with Volt Switch, HP Fire, Nature Power, Life Orb, Tapu Koko, because I really wanted Volt Switch, and everyone else had T-Bolt, Dazzling Gleam, HP Fire. But I really wanted Volt Switch. And I think Volt Switch is just such a fundamentally broken move, and what Miraidon does that makes it really impactful and different than other Pokemon is Volt Switch is balanced by the fact that it doesn't knock something out. The pivot moves are weaker, theoretically. With Miraidon, when we have Terra Electric, max special attack, modest choice specs, The Volt switches are knocking Pokemon out. It Oko's Incineroar. It does like 60% to a Moongus. There are no longer instances in which you think about Miraidon's Volt Switch being a weaker attack. It is just an attack. And that breaks the game balance because Miraidon gets to do damage and then not take damage. And by avoiding the consequences of doing damage, we had Miraidon in the mid game, we had Miraidon in the late game. We just like get to exist as a Pokemon, whereas other Pokemon have to like accept the risk of doing damage. And that's what made Miraidon really, really, really powerful, at least to me. Its stats are perfect. It's super bulky. It has a great typing when it Terra Electrics because that's also a defensive typing. It robs it from the ice weakness, the fairy weakness. It's just weak to ground, and there are no ground types in this format. Any at the time.
Choreograph is a ground type.
That's true. But like it just was so perfect. And the thing that we were struggling with was Miraidon's fourth move. We landed on Discharge, and I'm super glad we landed on Discharge. The thing that was also kind of weak about Miraidon that other Pokemon like is it didn't have a spread move. Like it could have Terra Fairy Dazzling Gleam, but that's not that important. And I wanted Terra Electric. But it had like Calyrex's Astral Barrage, Glacial Lance, Water Spout, Kyogre, Press Display, like all these spread moves. Miraidon didn't have one. But what if it did? And we put Discharge on, and I don't know if we really had like an amount of games with it. I kind of don't remember if there like if it was proof of concept or we just used it. But it was so broken.
So if like the first calcs with it, like the first game, like us warming up to this team, were like you sending me calcs or replays with Volt Switch one-shotting instant, we're like, oh my god, there's something here. The like next step was games where it was like there were 3 Pokemon on the field and we could just lock it up with a Discharge and just like wipe everything, and we're like, oh.
Like it was so broken.
During the tournament, there were so many people that I got to situations where it's like, both your Pokemon are at 70%. I don't care what's in my right slot because I am just going to Discharge. And that was really strong. I was telling people, like, if you were to, like, hold, basically force me, demand that I remove a move from Miraidon, I would remove Electro Drift.
In a heartbeat. Worst move on the set.
That's crazy because it's 100 base power, 0 drawback. It's
with an extra bonus. Not that that's really particularly relevant because I'm on his head at that point, but like
it's crazy. Like, oh my lord. But yes, the Discharge was a really big deal. Actually, for a while, the Whimsicott was Terra Ground. That was the Terra Ground one until I think Rajan.
Yeah,
Rajan was like, nah, it can't be. I never Terra ghosted. I would have loved to have Terra Ground.
But the reason we didn't is because Shadow Rider kind of ate ass, and we'll get to that in a second. But like,
yes.
But yeah, Discharge was also really important for Miraidon because it helped you take knockouts next to like around a Moongus, which happened to me in so many different occasions. Like it just was such a perfect complement to the set. And even there's drawbacks, but like we had settled on Blood Moon. That's a ground type. That's pretty cool. And honestly, who cares? Like, as Aaron said, like, if you have to... It wins games, whereas other moves did not win games as much. And that's just kind of what it was. With Whimsicott, that Mon, cracked the code, essentially. We were testing things, but eventually we settled down to the good set, which was Moonblast, Tailwind, Encore, Protect. Moonblast is really strong because it hits Urshifus, but more importantly, it hits Raging Bolt, hits Grass types for neutral damage. It's just, like, a really strong basic button to click on Whimsicott, even though it doesn't have that much special attack. No drawbacks to the move, just a really perfect addition. The thing that was really good about it was Encore. I know Aaron was testing Fake Tears with it too, but I was pretty adamant it had to be Encore and Protect, like, pretty immediately. Like, there's a lot of synergy with Encore Protect. It lets you protect in front of Fake Out, and then also Encore Pokemon into it. It lets you see what happens. It lets you avoid losing your Focus Sash for no reason, so then you can actually use Encore when it's impactful. It helps you stall out Tailwind for second Tailwind, or like to stagger your turns into opposing Tailwind a lot easier. Stall out Trick Room turns, unbelievably good. We were Terra Ground on Whimsicott. And the reason, at least I said, that we couldn't keep Terra Ground, even though it was funny, was Whimsicott having Encore couldn't Encore Pokemon that were setting up next to like fake out pivots without Terra Ghost. So if like I wanted to Encore Combine Bolt next to Incineroar Rillaboom, or if I wanted to Encore Nasty Plot Shadow Rider next to a Moongus with back fake outs, things like that. I guess less of Moongus because I lose my grass typing that way. But like if I want to not lose to setup plus fake out, and that's a really strong thing that Whimsicott can do, it just needed Terra Ghost. That's just really like the truth of it. Like it just needed to be able to do that. It didn't come up much, like Aaron said. I might have tarot it like one time. But I also just like didn't play the things that the boards where I would need to Terra Ghost did not really happen. Yeah. But I think I would have felt really hard pressed to beat specific things without Terra Ghost. Yeah. Was that a fair summary? I think that's a pretty fair summary.
I think so. Protect and Encore were so good. I was like, when I was laddering with Fake Tears, I was like, yeah, he's right, you know. Actually, Wolf was also demanding. Like, I sent him an early bid, and he was like, no, this must have Protect. And I was like, please. And it was like, no. You guys are both. I was just like, one more game. Just let me Fake Tears be Amoonguss one more time. But Encore and Protect were like kind of why I did so well, really. It gave me so much control.
It was the MVP of the team if you exclude Miraidon. Whimsicott was just so broken. I brought it to all of my top 8 sets. I think all of them are on stream. I just like brought Whimsicott a lot, and I had a really the bread like the unbelievable showing was Whimsicott against Justin Burns in top 4, where it just like Encore Raging Bolt into Thunderbolt, so then I could knock it out my other Pokemon. It won a 1v1 against Raging Bolt with at 1 HP with Thunderclap, etc. I could stall things out with Protect Encore. Like it was just so good. And it also like made the Ice Rider matchup. One thing to mention is that I have 4 Ice Weak Pokemon on my team. But I think I had a positive Ice Rider matchup. And one of the important things about that was Dash Whimsicott being able to stop, like, and Terra Ghost too. One of the other was helpful for denying Ice Rider the ability to set up Trick Room. With Encore and Whimsicott and the natural grass typing, Amoonguss Calyrex was not really able to set up Trick Room particularly reliably. One way it could consider setting up Trick Room is setting up Trick Room, then protecting, switching to Incineroar, and then faking out the Whimsicott to get damage with Glacial Lance, but Terra Ghost also covered that. So, like, we just got a lot of value there. Farigiraf with the Electric Seed was really, really strong. I went with as physical defensive as possible, because my thought with this format is if you do a thing well, keep doing it well. If you are splitting up what you do, you're just not doing your things well. And I think like mixed bulk on Farigiraf just means it's not being brought to any matchups as opposed to being brought to specific matchups. We went with Terra Ground ultimately to have access to another discharge switch in and helping hand Terra Ground, helping hand discharge without being able to be blocked by priority was just like a pretty strong checkmate. I did that against Stephen Ma. I did that against that's a +1 round 2. I think I just led Miraidon Farigiraf and just Terra Ground helping hand discharged off the leads and won the game, and he forfeited after turn 1. So like, and the final attack was keeping us up at night. I was thinking it could even have Roar, so I could press Draco Meteor side Roar or like Electro Drift side Roar without having the consequences of being locked in. But I went with Terra Blast, just to have an attack that hit Incineroar, Rillaboom, Raging Bolt, Calyrex, Amoonguss, like all of the Pokemon for a reasonable amount of chip. Aaron ultimately opted into the same thing. I never got to pull off Terra Ground, Terra Blast, unfortunately. I had one situation where I could have, but then I didn't see it, and I didn't do it.
I had one end game where it was like locked up against a Raging Bolt, and I could either helping hand Draco Meteor or I could Terra Ground, and it would have been like kind of like a vanity thing to go for the Terra Ground.
Well, no, then you had Draco miss odds. You were supposed to Terra Ground there.
It was kind of like they would have to Draco miss into like Draco hit crit, and I was like, I might have gone for it, but it never went off. Could have also been it. Terra Ground on Frigraph was also just like a bottom of the ninth ad from Rajan there. Like it was the same sort of thing. Like I woke up on Friday morning, he's like, I think it's Terra Ground, Terra Blast, and I was like, okay, sure. Like I had
It
Terra
didn't
Water
matter
earlier.
fundamentally.
Yeah, I don't think I ever got the discharge off. Terra Water might have helped me more against Calyrex, but like that was like more so because I needed like a wider safety net to make errors in that archetype. Let's see. So yes, that's all really important. Ensign, I think we've kind of just let kind of sit there. But again, like these are two different, teams. So we've talked about Rajan having the timid Blood Moon and I had the modest one. My Ensign is fast. It has a whole bunch of speed, and his is slow. It has no speed. Not no speed,
And a
but it's like
reduced IV.
it's a reduced IV even, which is crazy. 29 speed IV versus 76 speed EVs, and this is kind of why I love playing the same team as another player who is strong, because even if you can beat one of us, you have to beat the other one and all of their strong preferences as well, and that's just very challenging to do. So I really want to win Fake Out Wars because I lost a lot of games in practice, even though we have the Frigraph and the Ghost Terra, and I wanted to win Fake Out Wars because Fake Out Electro Drift is just kind of crazy.
Or Volt Switch.
Sorry, yeah, Fake Out Volt Switch. That's the one that I meant. And then the Terra Grass was a huge deal. This team, actually, if you look at my team, so ultimately what Ditto and Ogerpon I feel do is they give you just different trade-offs. And one of the trade-offs for Ditto is that, okay, if your Miraidon Terra's out of the Electro type, now all of a sudden everything is taking super effective damage, minus Whimsicott, that doesn't count, from water type attacks, and that's bad. But Incineroar was another a huge help against those Kyogre teams, because Kyogre is actually kind of annoying for Miraidon because they're all Terra Grass. That's the thing. Terra Grass is a huge. Everyone does it every game against Miraidon. It's and sometimes you can get out of it, sometimes you can't. So being able to Terra Grass U-turn on the Incin was a huge deal for me. Yeah,
I only did it once or twice, but it was game winning when I did.
So the one last thing to note is that on Whimsicott, mine is just max. It's actually the same Whimsicott that I used to win Dallas Regionals in 2020. I just moved it up, which was a lot of fun for me. And then it was less fun when Justin Burns beat me in top 8 and got actually a 4 years belated revenge on it, which I'm sorry, Whimsicott, I couldn't help. But Rajan's has this spread that I think survives Surging Strikes in rain.
So Aaron's spread was a mistake. Aaron just kind of got lazy at the end and didn't do it in game, I thought.
I was so mad. I ran around looking for EV reducing berries to make this spread, and I couldn't find enough. So I was like, "Screw this! I'm done." I was plain sick and annoyed. But yeah,
and I'm pretty grateful I had this spread specifically on Whims. Well, let me finish Incineroar on my end. I decided I didn't care about Fake Out Wars, and I didn't care about them because I thought Aaron had 5 Pokemon on his team, and I had 6 Pokemon on my team. So I got more options when I didn't have Ditto, and I felt like it was more important to me to have a slower U-turn and to be slower than the opposing Incineroars, so I could get my Miraidon back in safely more often. And I went with this spread. I didn't like having the Speedy Beast because I wanted to live Surging Strikes immediately with Incineroar without needing to Terra or anything like that. So this one just lives Choice Scarf, Adamant, Surging Strikes, and then has 60 Spadef. It was really, really bulky. It was really important. I'm really glad I had it. The speed stat lets it outrun plus speed base 90s that when I'm in Tailwind. So you can still outrun Kyogre when I'm in Tailwind. The Whimsicott spread lives Terra Water Surging Strikes in Rain from Choice Scarf Urshifu, and that was really important. It turns out a conglomerate of players were running Kyogre Rain with Urshifu and with Terra Water in the Urshifu, so I knew that my Whimsicott would eat that hit, whereas Aaron's died half the time. And then the last thing is just pretty glass. We just kind of realized it needed to be fast Blood Moon. I think we played some games with slow Blood Moon, but having it be a part of the Trick Room mode was really important. And I just went with Timid because I didn't have Ditto to auto win against Shadow Rider, whereas he had Ditto to auto win against Shadow Rider. The other thing that was fine for me was I didn't mind not really safety netting against Ice Rider. I was pretty fine with the options that I had. And Cornerstone, one of the biggest matchup issues is Aaron had a very good matchup into Zamazenta with Ditto because Ditto copies the Intrepid shield boost and like beats Zam. But I had a very, very, very bad Zamazenta matchup with my version of the team. And we just kind of accepted what the trade-offs were. I thought I had 6 Pokemon, and Aaron was really happy with 5 plus Mystery Man.
Ditto was so good, dude. I think what Adi, what you said earlier about like being able to play like comfortably, oh my god, Ditto was so good for me. I didn't even get to turn it into Incineroar in tournament, but if somebody like ever tried to play like a cycle, like nobody was able to cycle into me because their Pokemon were too busy fainting to Miraidon, but like I would have put them in the blender. Yeah, again, there are trade-offs, right? Ditto can't copy into Terra Stellar Terrapagos, so I just...
that was one of the big reasons. That was the
nail
in the coffin for me. I was like, I can't bring this mon. I think the Terrapagos matchup on the team was kind of rough. Whereas Cornerstone being a second focus sash, plus my own sash from Whimsicott, plus AB Incineroar, like it felt like I had a very playable, if not positive, Terrapagos matchup. But Ditto is so absolutely worthless in that matchup. It's unbelievable.
But
it's not actually worthless, but like,
taking another Incineroar, taking a Chi-Yu and being Scarf, taking a Urshifu is not bad, but you do lose a lot of control and consistency. But like I'm like really comfortable with my ability to play out of those 11th hour situations. And Ditto cannot run Terra Stellar because I think it like will
locks it out of future imposters.
Yeah, if it comes back in, it won't imposter. So I had to run Terra Ghost so I could dodge fake outs, but also if I ever copied a Calyrex Shadow Rider, I could just Terra and get the Astral Barrage boosts, which I did do to a couple people.
And it also makes it so you just beat Zam.
Yes, oh my god. I don't know if you saw out of Stockholm Regionals, Jory just posted the Mon versus Mon matchup list, and Zamazenta has a 70% win rate at 5-4 or higher against
Zam
Miraidon.
Is so broken. Yeah.
Yes, but I was just shocked because I just copied the Zamazenta and used +2 body press to just like knock out all the supporter Pokemon and then Zamazenta, and they couldn't handle that next to Miraidon. But I think that's like one of the cool things about like this being, two teams that really look like one team, but they really are two teams, is how drastically they differ.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, that was the process. I don't think we really missed any parts of the team. But this is a victory lap, so it is going to go a little long. So I do apologize to the viewers at home.
No, you're good. I think also when we have multiple people, it inherently goes longer because we want to talk about your tournament runs, and we're going to get to that in a second. But yeah, I guess one last thing, we're going to talk about again your tournament experiences, some of the more interesting matchups you played. But I want to get a quick overview of how to play the team. If you have any advice to people who want to pick up this team, use it. We have rental codes at the end of the video. What is your advice to people who want to use this team?
Electro Drift sucks is like one of my main pieces. So I will say, Aaron and I played against a junior varsity field when we got to use this. Like we had the best possible conditions. No one really expected it. It was really underappreciated Miraidon as a concept, like in people's tier lists, so their teams weren't prepped for it. I think people fundamentally misunderstood, frankly, how to use the Pokemon and like what made it good. Not a single person considered Discharge on the set. Like we had a lot of positives from our tournament experiences just coming from the fact that we frankly had the confidence to say we were doing it correctly and other people weren't, and that didn't phase us. The field is different now. I am
Yes.
seeing Terra Grounds on Pokemon, which is super funny. I'm seeing more people understand how to deal with Miraidon. Like, it is different.
Yeah.
Um, that notwithstanding, I think there's some important things, or at least takeaways from general gameplay. Miraidon is powerful if it's not on the field. The thing about Pokemon is they're generally better when they have the switch in option or like can be brought in with tempo. If Miraidon is clicking Electro Drift, even if it takes a knockout, it's stuck on the field, and your opponent can take it, like keep that in mind with their trades and be like, okay, you took a knockout on my Amoonguss, but I set up Trick Room, and now you don't have Encore on the field, so now I can like start to attack you or apply pressure. Whereas Volt Switch, generally speaking, wins damage trades because it turns you do a magic trick. You do a ton of damage, but then also have two support Pokemon on the field afterwards to be able to address your opponent's board. So I think that's like something that we were doing that other people weren't. We were clicking Volt Switch pretty liberally, and then I would have boards with like Incineroar Whimsicott or Cornerstone Whimsicott or like things of that nature, and I was super comfortable navigating those boards because then you would be able to pivot back to Miraidon and then just like you couldn't do it round one, how about round two? So I felt very comfortable trying to like set up how does Miraidon get more turns than my opponent's Pokemon, and like was really thinking about the game from the concept of turn economy and from the concept of how do I make sure like I deny their options while exerting my own. And Volt Switch was just like so broken in that regard.
Yeah. Yeah, everything that you said is super right. Like, one of my friends texted me from Stockholm Regionals today and said, I was going to Volt Switch off of Fluttermane and it Terra Grounded on me, and then I lost, and then I Draco Meteored it, and it did not Terra Ground me, and I lost again, and I was like, huh, I didn't have to deal with that. You know, we
Didn't have
dealt
that
with,
problem.
like, we dealt with Kyogre teams that had no electric resist, and when I say electric resist, I mean a Pokemon that can resist Miraidon's damage output. For example, Raging Bolt might be a Miraidon electric resist, but the type chart doesn't matter sometimes. Like, if Terra Electric Raging Bolt if a AV Raging Bolt, Assault Vest Raging Bolt goes Terra Electric, Helping Hand Electro Drift with Terra Electric on Miraidon can almost take it out. It might, like, it's like 90%, if not, more. If they're not AV, not a chance. And so we were really benefited by people not
Yeah.
really understanding the calcs. The amount of people whose like face fell when they saw the Volt Switch KO the Incineroar was a big deal. Also, like, it's not that, like, the sky opened up and we just walked into top 8 in finals. There was
We
a lot of
played.
like there was a lot of that we played. There was a lot of fail safes in this team that we never like really had to rely on. Like, for example, you said that like Ursaluna Bloodmoon was like the worst performing member of the team, and like I sort of agree,
For
but
me.
also for me, but we had like one or two Caloric Shadows on our schedule each, and going into that regional, I don't think anybody would have expected that. The Pokemon with 40% usage, you would hit like one time. So
I never saw a Shadow Rider on the field. The only one I played
yeah.
decided not to bring it.
Right. Yeah. So I had somebody with Terra fighting Caloric Shadow Rider, and I sent out my Caloric Shadow with Ditto, and I was threatening the Astral Barrage, and they Terra fighting to get out of it, and I just hit them with a Moonblast too. So it was it's a good time. But so in order to play this team, I feel like the major question is, how is Miraidon going to deal its damage? Because let's say that you misposition your Miraidon, you let it go down. Well, now you've got a bunch of support pieces and maybe an Ursaluna Bloodmoon if you brought it.
Miraidon is not allowed to die. So that's what makes Volt Switch so important.
Yes, exactly. It's all about bringing it in and out. It's all about switching it in and out. For me, I think like what speed control is going to let you position your Miraidon or Ursaluna most safely, and how is Incineroar going to enable that? And then for Ditto, I think the question is really, are they weak to any of their own Pokemon with a choice scarf? Which is the answer more often than you think. I I failed in top 8. Justin Burns, really did beat me very well. And if we played in top 4, I might have had 2 Miraidon. Which
You would have beaten me AF in top 4, I
I
think. I don't think I could have handled Ditto.
Yeah, that's kind of how Ditto works. People will see it in team preview and be like, "Huh," and sort of short circuit. And so positioning Ditto can be as useful, if not more, than Miraidon, but it's such a double-edged sword. It's so razor's edge. As Rajan said, I lost many, many games in practice. All the practice sets I set Rajan were me winning one game with Ditto after losing 2 of them and begging the other person for a third game. So
Nah,
yeah,
run it back. Run it
yeah,
back.
no, please, the sun was in my eyes, bro. But yes. So I think that's really what it is. And I think, yeah, Miraidon every game. We let it in most of our games. I'm not sure if
No,
that'll
we
really work
both
for
let
viewers.
it every game.
We both
There was
let
not
it
a
every
single
game.
game we did not lead that Pokemon. And I've thought about it 4 times. And every single time I was like, if I don't lead Miraidon, I'm giving up 70% of my opponent's health for no reason. As in, I don't have a Volt Switch, turn 1, every single game. And none of my other options are nearly as scary as not leading Miraidon. I don't need to lead Cornerstone, Freegraph, set up Trick Room, win with Blood Moon, have Miraidon and back, because that's worse than leading Miraidon, doing immediate damage, and then cleaning up with Blood Moon, right? I don't need to Instant Whimsicott, U-turn out, get Tailwind up, have Miraidon in position, because Miraidon's got 115 bulk for no reason and can withstand a little bit of bullying, right? So every time was, how do we make Miraidon do what it needs to do? It probably averaged about 3 kills a game. 2.5 to 3 kills a game. And I think that's the correct way, frankly, or at least one of the correct ways to approach a format like this one, because it is not Reg F plus. It is, what do your things do that are worth doing, and how do you make it so that your Pokemon accomplishes what it does well as often as possible? And in this context of this team, it was Miraidon getting off stupid, ungodly amounts of damage and breaking the opponent's team for itself to win with Discharge. It's just think about how you leverage Miraidon, think about what their pieces are, and then there's a lot of disruption tools on the team, with Encore from Whimsicott, your own Incineroar's Fake Out, the Electric Seed for Farigiraf taking a lot less damage, me having Follow Me, and Aaron having Imposter. You have a lot of tools in your toolbox to deny them value from their board and to throw Miraidon into as many things as possible. Now, currently, the metagame is probably going to require you to have more uncomfortable situations, more instances where you have to decide what's effective, an electric move or Draco Meteor. Just by nature of there being more flutters, there being more Terra Grounds now, things of that nature that we didn't have to deal with. But I still fundamentally believe in Miraidon's ability to overcome those challenges because the damage it does is unbelievable. But just don't let yourself get caught. Don't look at the board in front of you and say, taking a knockout is cool, so I'm going to do it. Deny your impulses a little bit. Don't just press the funny buttons, because pressing the funny buttons gets you caught out of position. Always think about the next turn. And Miraidon is just that should be how you play Pokemon in general. But Miraidon especially can really tunnel vision you into taking a knockout when taking the knockout is bad. And always be thinking about, what does this end game look like? And how do I use Encore, etc. to get me there? Mm-hmm. I had no practice games with the 6 that I used before the tournament. My round 1 was my first game with my 6. So I did have a bit of optimizing matchups and figuring things out as the day progressed. But as the day progressed, Aaron and I both realized we had something really special.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the atmosphere in the hall between me and Rajan was just electric. Especially at the end of day 1 when he went 9-0. At the end of every round, he would just show up and be like, I got another, Miraidon did another 375% of my opponent's damage, and we'd be like, yeah. It was just so much fun. I think we both realized we knew how strong it was, but I think like we both realized by like 4 rounds in, like actually like kind of like right after he went on stream, like one, oh my god, this is the story of this tournament, and two, like it will never like this. It will never be this good for us again. So we just need to have the run of our lives. Yeah, the
Honestly,
Loons
though,
will.
like
Yeah. It,
100%.
yeah.
Like I've
It,
never won a regional before. I don't want to say I can't ever win another regional, but this was the most favorite. You could not have set the dial further in like how do I personally succeed than this tournament.
I mean, I've like at the regionals I've succeeded at in the past. Like I did something actually kind of similar from like an information perspective in 2020, where I figured out Gmax Wildfire goes for 4 turns, not 3, and that it's like very very good, and people just weren't
Even
thinking
with
about it.
Blaze and not solar power, whatever it
Yeah,
was.
even with Blaze, and it still nothing compared to Miraidon volt switching in instant and just taking it off the field, and your opponent being like, "Wait, what?" Like nothing like running into Kyogre teams that can't redirect the like volt switch at all. And we
Looking
were
at
like,
Ice Rider teams with 6 months that die to
yeah,
Draco.
yes. It was really just a perfect storm in every, sense of the word. And I feel like if I could like time travel back to one part of my Pokemon career, it would be, to
It
to
was
this
so much
tournament.
fun. It was so much fun.
Mhm.
So,
100%.
my lost day one was to the Lugia guy. He had Hines. I'm very sorry. He had actually just beat Robbie with the team before. So I'm sure he's
That was so
yeah,
funny.
yeah, he's leaving. He's leaving the tournament feeling really good about his matchup against our team, which fair play to him. He played really well. I was kind of kicking myself afterwards because I was like, okay, like I could have played better from a macro perspective. I kind of knew what to do. But this is one of the weaknesses of the team is like with the Rillaboom, we actually had very few ways of actually getting through to the Lugia. I feel like if somebody played Terapagos in a similar way, at least I would be a little bit hosed and not really have much to do, and Rajan would probably be like pretty chill. But
I did
in game,
play Calm Mind Terapagos, like, follow me, which was kind of
yeah.
annoying.
Right. So for me, I had to, like, in game 2, I copied Lugia after it had Calm Minded, and I, like, went for Lugia with Aeroblast instead of all the partner Pokemon, and, like, that was a mistake. I could have even set up something where I, like, transformed into my own Miraidon, but, like, I didn't. So, that was my loss, and then the next loss came in round 10 versus Justin Tang. I'm not going to focus on my losses. I want to point out rounds 7, 8, and 10 here. So Marco, Austin, and Rushiel. So Marco Martinez is Mars VGC. Rushiel is Conkodonk, very strong player at my locals, and Austin Choi, who has been around for a very long time. I think started playing recently, but like had a Nugget Bridge account since like 2013.
Which
Ostensibly
you
like
would
a
know.
group of. Well, he told me.
Oh, never mind. I
He
thought
told me, he was
Granddaddy
like,
knew
yeah, I've been like,
everything.
no. He's like, I've been around for a while. I really only started playing like 20, oh gosh, was it Scarlet Violet? Um, all these players, 3 strong Calyrex Ice teams, all with Terra Grass, all with, Raging Bolts and things that look hard for this team. And I was able to basically execute the same game plan in all 3 games. And it really felt like deja vu, and like they were sweating, and I felt really great about that. And Ditto came through in a big way in these sets as well. So I felt like that was like a really high point of the tournament for me.
So you
And
mentioned
then,
you mentioned you
yeah.
you approach these all the same way. I know Rajan's really excited to talk about how he approached the Ice Rider matchup a little earlier. I cut him off.
Yeah.
Aaron
Tell
does
me,
approach it very different than I
well,
do.
Yes, I
want to
do.
hear both of them,
So,
especially how they're different. So yeah, go ahead and tell me about how you
so
approach the Ice
yeah,
Rider matchup.
So game 1, I always did the same thing, which is I led Miraidon instant and then just hard switched to Whimsicott as the double protected. So
I'm so
Calyrex,
happy I taught you that line.
yeah. So he taught me that. Well, hang on. He taught me that line, and their only real move is to like, if imagine you're a Calyrex Ice player. You've put together. You think the strongest art with the strongest archetype is. You have really neutral matchups. You've done your practice games. You've laddered to 80 GXE on Showdown. You feel great. Now you're sitting across from a dude who you've heard of before. That's got Specs Miraidon. None of the calcs, and he's also got like a Scarf Ditto on his team. This dude is a madman. The only thing you can do to protect yourself is Amoonguss Calyrex Ice lead with the Terragrass Ice, Calyrex Ice, and you protect. Every one of them made a, protecting move on game 1, and Whimsicott just locked it up with Encore. They had to switch out, which meant Miraidon could do whatever it wanted. And then, it came back in later to lock up the game, and Farigiraf stalled in the middle of the game with Foul Play. In game 2, I specifically baited them into a Terragrass on their Calyrex. And then I copied their Calyrex with my Ditto and just Glacial Lanced them until they lost. And this is actually how I beat all 3 of them in game 2. And the only reason I didn't do that against Justin Burns in my game 2 against him is because I actually won it before Ditto hit the field. But yeah, it just felt very strong. And now that it's out there, now that, people are taking apart our team, I don't think it'll happen again. I had a great set against Luca that was streamed. He's a great player. We've actually gotten a little bit closer since this regional started. Miraidon I thought was actually kind of a weakness for the team.
I did too.
You could kind of get around it with playing your Tailwind really smartly, but he just rocked me with really smart, really great switches. So yeah,
really
that's all.
Volatile set. I was watching that.
It's very volatile. And I definitely could have played better, but I was happy, and of course I want to, do better in the future, but it wasn't something that I'm beating myself up about. I did lose. I got knocked out by Justin Burns. I am beating myself up a little bit about this one. So to start our set, he leads Calyrex, Ice, and Amoonguss, and I go for it. I go for the Whimsicott switch, and he just Glacial Lances and Pollen Puffs, and the set is over. The game is over. Just immediately.
Yeah.
And I felt like kind of a chump for doing that, especially because I think you're about to, talk about how you did that all over your set, and, looking back, I should have been oh, he just...
No, he was calling
Rajan.
The wins for me, too. Yeah.
Yeah, but he had the benefit of being somebody who actually played against this team before, which after 15 rounds I wasn't used to. And so I thought he played really, really well. And losing on this beautiful day out with Rajan really sucked. But and Whimsicott.
Wait, what did you leave when that happened? Did you not
just instant Miraidon, and I just why would I Draco into Terra Fairy Amoonguss? I just switched to. Hard switch to Whimsicott, and I had Farigiraf in the back. In game 2, I kind of just started targeting stuff. He switched in his Raging Bolt, and
that is an adjustment that Justin's team had that no other team had. Was they had a way to punish, Justin had a way to punish Draco Meteor.
Because usually he can just start winging out Draco Meteors and force me to miss. He started he switched in his Raging Bolt, and then it fainted to a helping hand Electro Drift or something, which allowed me to basically take control before even hit the field. And then in game 3, I pivoted poorly, and especially with the Ditto version of this team, it's super high risk Jenga is one positional error, and it just all comes tumbling down, and it did. And it basically came down to my Ditto Calyrex Ice getting beat up outside of Trick Room by the Urshifu. So I definitely could have played a lot better against Justin, but I feel a tournament where I'm kicking myself afterwards for landing top 8 and winning $1,000 after again not having a team until 5 days before is probably still a good tournament.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a heck of a tournament, and especially knowing that your team building partner managed to get you back. So Rajan, your turn. You want to tell us about some of the highlights of your tournament run?
Yeah, I mean,
grab my laptop. Sorry, one sec. Grabbing my laptop charger.
Yeah, I found the first couple of rounds pretty satisfying because traditionally the Pokemon you would think would be pretty difficult into Miraidon or for Miraidon would be Raging Bolt and Rillaboom, and I don't think I played a Raging Bolt or Rillaboom until round 6, where I played a Raging Bolt. So I dodged the entirety of those 2 Pokemon for a number of rounds. So there was a lot of joking in between rounds, and I was cheesing my way to the map, cheesing my way through the field by just dodging the scary Pokemon every time. But I don't think that was inherently true. I do recall my round 1 being really scary because there was Cali Ice Amoonguss, which I'm used to, but there was also the Indeedee on it, which isn't traditional on Cali Ice. So I actually had to risk or worry about Spore. But, the mantra for the first several rounds was just press Volt Switch well, and deny my opponents their value. I do remember playing That's a +1 round 2, and remember I lost game 1 or I won game 1, and then game 2 I just like won off the lead by pressing Helping Hand discharged and Terra grounding my Farigiraf. Like the entire team just lost. And I was just building confidence in the early rounds. I was just pressing Volt Switch. I was using my pieces. I've never brought Whimsicott to a tournament before. I'm not used to pressing Encore, things of that nature. But it was just like kind of succeeding for me. Round 4 was scary because it was double Follow Me plus Terapagos, and David Marquine put up a hell of a show. I think they finished top 32 overall. So like it really was not free by any means, but like this was the round that really convinced me that like what we had was something very special, because I had no practice in a Terapagos before the tournament either, like at all. But just seeing the damage.
Excuse me? We played like 5 games.
No, the Calm Mind one, I'm sorry.
Good save, Rajan. Adi, I would never disrespect like that.
I didn't have any practice against Calm Mind Terapagos. And I definitely didn't have practice with Terapagos plus like redirection. And like in this way, like ones that I can't like press buttons with Cornerstone around. And that was like pretty awkward. But like Incineroar not taking damage, Miraidon doing a lot of damage, being able to Encore things and to Follow Me instead of like Ivy Cudgel or whatever, like that was just a lot of value. And this like taught me how cool the team was. I don't honestly think I have that many notable matches in day 1, because the team was just like kind of working the way I wanted it to. I had a stream set round 7, which is on the official Pokemon thing. The funniest thing was against Leonard round 9. There's a cheesy, funky line within the team to just beat Calyrex Ice off the rip. It only works if the opposing Calyrex Ice does not have an electric resist Terra, as in it's not Terra Grass or Terra Dragon. But if they are Terra Water or Terra Fire, like Leonard's was, you can just lead, because every Calyrex player leads Amoonguss Calyrex Ice. It's just like the law. I didn't make the law. It is just the law. And you can just lead Miraidon plus Ursaluna Blood Moon, Paraelectric Discharge Hyper Voice, and Calyrex Ice faints next to Amoonguss, and they can't do anything to you. So I did that to Leonard game 1, completely scammed him. He lost the game on the spot, forfeited right after that. He's like, oh, that sucked. Game 2, he led Urshifu Rapid Strike and Raging Bolt, I think. Just like do something completely different. And I led Cornerstone Miraidon, and I just said, I don't care. And I Draco'd the Bolt, and I power up the Urshifu, and I won game 2, turn 1 as well. Which was pretty funny.
Yeah.
So I didn't like really sweat that hard day 1.
You know,
day 2,
Leonard also came on the channel and did his report. And I always love having 2 reports where I get to hear both people's perspective on a match. That one, I think, was pretty much the same from both of you guys.
He just got owned. Like, I don't have anything else to say. He just got owned.
You mentioned not playing that many Raging Bolt on day 1, but like Raging Bolt isn't it looks good into Miraidon, but I don't actually think it is, because it just doesn't do enough fast enough, and it's like its Draco Meteors aren't as powerful. Like, you're gonna sit there and Snarl or like Electro Web while I'm taking like 90% chunks out of your team at a time, and then coming back in later to, you know, get you. So I think, you know, maybe he was also baited there.
Maybe. I think it is a little harder than that, just by nature of denying damage or denying value out of my turns. If my Volt Switch is doing 20% to something as opposed to 60% to something, then I don't feel as comfortable with my damage trades. And it does make it harder to like cement a discharge win con, because they have a Pokemon that actually resists the electric move. So I think it's less that it like is super scary, but I do actually think the damage is kind of scary because we give it electric terrain as well. But more that it denies our damage trades. But like I kind of like didn't sweat that hard going into day 2. I finished day 1 9-0. I think the hardest round was round 5. It was another Miraidon, but they had a lot of Cork Drive Mons and also finished top 32. And I just kind of realized I could set up Trick Room, which was pretty funny because they had all the faster Pokemon. I finished 9-0. My best friend Nick Navarre finished 9-0 as well, so we knew we were in the same bed at that regional. We shared a bed. We were in the same hotel room. We knew we were playing each other round 10. I had played a couple games with Adi using something similar. Nick did not have that experience, and I didn't think that was fair, so I told him like Nature's on my team so we could even out information. And this was the only actual set that I lost the entire tournament, and I just played really bad and got really unlucky. Like, that's just what happened. Game 1, I missed a Draco. He won the game on the spot. Game 2, I terrored my Miraidon for fun in front of his Chiyu for no real reason, and I lost my Fire Resist for no reason. And I lost the game. Like, that's really just all that happened. I played Justin Burns, who is, I think, the best Ice Rider matchup in the Ice Rider team in the tournament by a lot, and he had a lot of choices that were pretty punishing with Terra Fairy on Amoonguss and the booster Raging Bolt to give it a lot of gas. And this was the match in the tournament where I decided to be a good player. This is where I put my I put on my big boy pants and said I'm going to play this game as opposed to let Miraidon win the game because Justin's too good of a player to like have that happen. And this is the time where I started benching Farigiraf in the Ice Rider matchup. I wasn't even bringing it. Generally speaking, you would think that our team would have Whimsicott, Incineroar, Raging Bolt, and Farigiraf as the traditional core to beat Ice Rider. Incineroar. What did I say?
You said Raging Bolt.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry, Miraidon. Different electric dragon. With using the pressure from Miraidon early, using Farigiraf as mid-game glue to reverse Trick Room and take no damage and to win the game again with like Miraidon into their team. Like that's kind of like the way you would think about it. But Justin had Booster Energy Raging Bolt, which threatened an Oko and my Farigiraf Thunderbolt in terrain, and I didn't want to Terra Farigiraf in this matchup because that's a little silly. And then also had Terra Fairy Amoonguss, which applied a lot of pressure, and Justin was making a lot more aggressive plays than just setting up Trick Room or things like that. But this is when I kind of realized how strong our matchup was with Whimsicott, Incineroar, Ogerpon, and Miraidon. Because with Ogerpon and Whimsicott, I had a lot of options to play around the Amoonguss, and Draco Meteor still applied a lot of Oko pressure, so I could do a lot of funky things like Draco switch to Incin, Volt switch to Incin, have Whimsicott on the field, lead Incin, get Whimsicott in, and I was just using a lot of my pressure pieces. Justin said that the matchup was really hard for him, and it felt really hard for him, but likewise, I gave myself no real way to come back into the game if I fuck it up, which is like. But I think when you get to day 2, especially against better players in day 2, you aren't really allowed to just assume that your opponents are going to lose for you. You have to deserve the win. And I just felt like using my pieces to play around Amoonguss was like the strong way to approach it. And he didn't seem to have great ways to deal with Cornerstone, which was really, really good. I played Justin Tang immediately afterwards. It was a rain team. Helping Hand Draco Meteor, Okotis Kyogre, and I kind of just won the game. It was Assault Vest Kyogre, still died. I just realized that Iron Jugulus is inherently worse than setting up Tailwind for Miraidon, and it was just a lot of that. The hardest set all tournament was immediately afterwards, was against Ethan Matos, Splatty Daddy. This team was a nightmare. I don't know how I won, but I did. But it was a nightmare. It was Screens, Grimmsnarl, ID, Zam, Calm Mind, Terragrass, Cresselia, and Tinglu, which is the Nightmare Pokemon for Miraidon. Those were the 4 that they brought every game. I knew that those were the 4 that were going to get brought, and I was just like, how do I win? And realistically, it was just about trading damage effectively with Miraidon, U-turns from Incineroar, chipping Tinglu pretty effectively, Moonblast from Whimsicott, chipping Tinglu pretty effectively. I don't remember what I brought as my 4th mon. I think it was Cornerstone because that makes sense, but I also probably don't think I brought it because Zam was pretty annoying. I think I brought Miraidon, Incineroar, Whimsicott, and then Blood Moon one game, I know, and I think the first game was... No, I think it was Cornerstone. Whatever. It was just tough, and I just had to really position my pieces well around screens, bait, Terra Ghost, Grimmsnarl early, which let me pressure it with encores and then like kind of play that game. And game two, I crit the Cresselia with Discharge. It was awesome. Like, and it is what it is. That was the matchup I was the most terrified about. And then I immediately scooped the next round to lower Ethan's resistance. And it was relevant. Ethan did lose their win in, but if they had won, they would not have cut. They would have hit ninth place off of one win. So it was pretty relevant. It was mean. I let Ethan know I was going to do it. I felt bad about it, but I did not want to play it. I needed to care about my own tournament. And Shiliang, I just scooped in the cut because I wanted to see the Rain teaming cut because I thought my matchup was really good. Into Keanu in top 8. All the next sets are streamed. They're on the official Pokemon channel. Like you can watch them. But Keanu was the absolute hardest matchup for the team for me. I thought Xianpao plus Terragrass Zamazenta was the hardest matchup by far. Not for Aaron because he had Ditto, but for me because I didn't have Zamazenta counterplay. I won game 1 based off of Keanu's inexperience. I lost game 2 on the spot because Icicle Crash flinched my Miraidon, and God's Plan carried me into game 3. I timed out into a better move than I was going to make, and then won off an Icicle Crash miss.
We take those, and
we do. It was God's plan. Like I was supposed to win the regional, and I would have won game 2 if I didn't get flinched. So I didn't feel bad.
We messed up going into cut. You played easy matchup for me that was really hard for you that I'd already played, and I played somebody you had already beat. I don't know if it was an easy matchup, but if we had reversed those, then we might have met in top 4. Well, I mean, you made it anyway, but yeah, he also had the benefit of playing against me, right? Like I Encore locked his Latios into Icy Wind, and then, you know, I'm presuming he didn't make that mistake against you.
No.
And this team is like kind of coming on hot out of Stockholm Regional, so I guess it's kind of like, you know, really under the microscope.
And it was tough, but the matchup was really hard. Game 3 was very funny. Miraidon took 4 knockouts with Electro Drift that game. It Electro Drift knocked out Latios on the switch, and Helping Hand Electro Drifted Rillaboom and Grassy Trains and Oko it from full. It Electro Drifted to kill Zamazenta, and I beat a 1 HP Xianpao with the Electro Drift, so just took 4 kills. My top 4 and final sets are on the official YouTube channel, but Justin and I just played a really nail-biter of a set against in top 4. And finals was just really exciting. The only team decision I regret on the team at all is Miraidon being faster than my Whimsicott. I had thought that being slower is a lot better for the Terapagos matchup in general, and it would have been really, really relevant in finals. Fortunately, it didn't matter. My Discharge knocked out Andrew's Terapagos game 3. It was a 93.8% roll in my favor. He did the calc, so I didn't actually, cheese a win out, but I was really kicking myself in the moment, and was like, it was a funky Discharge end game too, because I had knocked out his Flutter Mane from full with Discharge, which is not something that you think is allowed or supposed to happen. But it did, and then I knocked out his Amoonguss, and then his Terapagos came in, and I was like, man, if my Whims was faster, this was so locked. But it wasn't, but I still won, and it was pretty cool.
Sorry, trying to.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to go through. I wasn't trying to take too long on my games, especially for the ones that are streamed. But I won the tournament, so I had a lot of games.
And if you want to, obviously, watch any of those games, those are all, like you said, on the YouTube channel. All
the top cut ones, and then round 7 for day 1.
Yeah, but I definitely recommend that you try this team out. And like you said, the meta game is developing. We are recording this after day 1 of Stockholm, before day 2 of Stockholm, and by the time you're watching this, Stockholm will have concluded. So who knows? Maybe the Zamazenta team will be everywhere, and this team will suck. I don't know. But I definitely think everyone kind of wrote off Miraidon for a long time, or at least the first week of the format, and even before that, when we were kind of playtesting. People didn't figure out how to use it, and here we are with it, winning the first tournament and definitely establishing itself. Even if there have to be adjustments made to the adaptations, now that people kind of respect it, it's definitely one of the restrictions that you have to respect now. That you have to pay attention, you have to know your matchup into it, and so I'm really excited to see not only people try this team out, but also how they continue to develop it and iterate on it so that it actually continues to have a place, even with some hostile matchups popping up potentially at Stockholm. But yeah, those are all the questions that I had. Of course, I've got the rental code for Rajan's team right here, and one of these tabs. I have Aaron's version of the team. Nope, this is also this is Aaron's version of the team.
No, that's Aaron's.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
Aaron's.
So
That's mine.
okay, yeah, we got them. We got them both. So definitely recommend you try out whichever one you like more. Maybe both. I don't know. That's all the questions I have. Did you have any final words or shout outs that you wanted to give?
I mean, shout outs to the Bike Bros. Evan Lott was helping us. He's normally casting, but he was helping us quite a bit in DMs at least to be the muscle for some ideas. We just had a really limited amount of time where we put this together, and really appreciate the support from friends that were helping take some of the decisions out of our hands, or at least test some ideas. That was really, really valuable. And I really want to thank Aaron for going on this journey with me. I don't think either of us would have brought this Pokemon if we were not willing to lock it in together. And I'm just really grateful to have had that experience. And I'm really grateful for everyone who was supporting me throughout the day and afterwards. I was really, really blown away by the support, by things like my comments on Twitter. Winning a regional was and has been one of my biggest goals for a very, very, very long time. And, this weekend was really special to me. So I do apologize for the longer show for this one, but this was a great weekend.
I guess I want to thank all my folks as well. I don't think I got to say this earlier.
Jake and Robbie, obviously. Robbie drove
Robbie
up, went to the tournament, wanted to cancel the tour, but went because he said he would drive me home. Drove me home, waited until 6:30 because I left at the exact last moment as possible because I had to get a winner's interview. Was willing to drive me back to do my winner's interview because they forgot to tell me I had to do it. Absolute homie. Got home at 4 a.m. But extraordinarily crucial member of the Bike Bros. But really, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I cannot shout out my boy.
No, yeah, it's Robbie was great. It was just a lot of fun to hang out with Robbie. I hadn't seen him in a little while. My shout outs, of course, Evan Latt. It was a lot of fun, working with him. Past couple of years he's been getting back into playing, and I've just been blown away by how great he is. So it's been a lot of fun and working with him at the same time as you. Jake Major built all of my spreads. I think you ended up using his Whimsicott spread, or maybe you built it again. You built it yourself, but it was sort of like Jake. I think what you said, it was you informed my spreads. I did not take any of them, but you helped me decide what I wanted. So I guess thank you. He was like, I guess you're welcome. Maybe it went like that. But for me,
if I give someone credit, then
Right.
if I give credit, then I lose some of my power.
You lose some of it. That's right. So thanks to Jake. Wolf also was super helpful at every point, mentality wise. And it was, great that he was casting and not playing, so it wasn't a conflict of interest. As well as my friends who were there that day, Yuki and Dylan. And it was cool to be casted by Wolf and Aaron. I want to say thanks to all the Tub Nation, all you in bathroom, all that one big bathtub. For letting me be sort of like a bridesmaid at the big tub wedding. It's kind of crazy, sitting at the tables, waiting for top 8, and it was Rajan, Nails, Birds, and me, and I was like, you guys, you sure have a lot going on here, huh? And so it was a lot of fun, and a lot of people took time out of their schedules to play me in practice matches, because that was, who, you were comfortable with me testing against, so Raghav.
It was a large list. It was
a large list. I'm just saying, I'm grateful that they, Alex Underhill took time to practice Calyrex Ice, and he cleaned my clock, right? And then of course finally to Rajan, it's been I gotta do the cute one too. It's been a lot of fun, and I said this at the regional, but I always talk about the 2016 season, but we worked very, very closely then, and it was cool to rekindle that with this tournament, and I'm just happy it went so magically the way it did. I wouldn't change any of it. So
absolutely. Well, congratulations once again on both of your really incredible performances. Rajan, congratulations on getting your regional win. And again, like I said, we got Aaron's team right here. We got Rajan's team on screen as well. Both the paces will be in the description down below. If you want to try out any of these teams, definitely recommend that you do. And thank you both for coming on the channel, giving this in-depth explanation. I really appreciate it. And until next time, I will see you all later.
Thanks, gang.